Okay, how many times do we have to go through this? Once again, AMD completely overshot, fell on its face on a product launch, and immediately cut prices. Welcome back to PC Builder. I'm Jason. We're going to go through the best CPU to buy in July, including the 7700 X3D. Just got a massive price cut on launch day because nobody was buying that thing. And of course, we'll take a look at CPU prices and what's the best gaming CPU and production CPU to buy in July 2026. If you get value out of this video, please give it a like, of course, subscribe for more cool PC content. Let's jump into it. This video is sponsored by VIP SCD-Key. Say goodbye to crazy expensive Windows licenses and that terrible Activate Windows watermark. Right now, use the links in the video description, head over to VIP SCD-Key and get a Windows 11 OEM license for a great price. Pick your product license, then use the PC Builder discount code PC25 for additional 25% off. Go to the activation settings on your PC, put in the code, and boom! Windows is fully licensed for a crazy low price. And they have Microsoft Office licenses too. Use the links in the video description. All right, let's take a look at the CPU bestsellers over at Amazon and at Newegg. We did this for GPUs right after Prime Day, kind of compared AMD versus NVIDIA, what people were buying for Amazon Prime Day. And it was shocking to see so many AMD Radeon GPUs basically dominating the top 10 because it used to look like this, only in reverse. Look at this. Where are Intel CPUs in the top 10 bestsellers? You have to scroll all the way down to number 13. This is the way it used to be for AMD Radeon GPUs versus NVIDIA GPUs. Now this is the way it is for Intel CPUs versus AMD CPUs. It is totally insane to see this happening right now. But I want to focus in on the top selling CPUs right now. The number one best-selling CPU on Amazon is the Ryzen 5500. This is an ultra budget gaming CPU. Actually, it's a pretty good one. It's not based on the same architectures like the Zen 3. That's the Ryzen 5800X3, Ryzen 5600X. Instead, it's basically a disabled APU that runs about as fast as a Ryzen 3600X does. $82, the number one bestseller because it's dirt cheap and it uses what? DDR5 RAM. That's driving a lot of the buying decisions here, as you can see. What's the number 3 bestseller here? It's the Ryzen 5800 X3D. This thing has just gotten back on the market and it's already climbing the charts. I guarantee you that this thing will be number 1 relatively soon. The other thing is we see yet another AM4 CPU in the top 10. That's the Ryzen 5800 XT, even at an eye-watering $219. Now, it does come with a nice Wraith Prism cooler to it, but honestly, $219, that just goes to show you how far people are going right now to avoid DDR5 costs. Although, if they are buying DDR5, I think we can quickly see they're buying higher-end CPUs, the 9800 X3D, the 9600X. They're tending to prefer the slightly more upscale CPU, 9600X versus 7600X, for instance, the 9800 X3D versus 7800 X3D. So it does seem if people are going to already go all in on DDR5, they're spending a little extra on their CPU. And then just a quick glance over in terms of Newegg as well. The 5800 X3D is the number 1 bestseller at Newegg. Now this tends to be more of an enthusiast community on Newegg, the enthusiast buyers versus kind of the regular masses over at Amazon. And the 5500 is their number 3 best-selling CPU. I don't see another AM4 CPU until we get to number 9, which is the 5800X. I think that's because Newegg has basically been out of stock of the 5800 XT. They've been selling that in its stead. It is pretty crazy though. You actually do see an Intel CPU here. Again, a little bit more of an enthusiast audience. I think if somebody wanted to do a performance production PC, the 270K does make a lot of sense. But we did just get 2 new, and I'm using air quotes here, X3D CPUs from AMD since we last took a look at the CPU market. That is the Ryzen 5800 X3D 10th Anniversary Edition. Basically the exact same CPU as the 5800 X3D. And then we got the 7700 X3D that just launched. We did a build guide for the 7700 X3D. I do plan to do an upgrade guide for the 5800 X3D as well. Let me know down in the comments if you want a full build guide brand new with the 5800 X3D as well. Taking a look at the performance of these CPUs, didn't really shock anybody. The 5800 X3D performs just below the Ryzen 7700X. Basically, it performs like a 9600X, slightly better than the 7600X. For $350, the big benefit there is if you're already on AM4, you don't have to buy RAM or motherboard or anything. Maybe you do need a bigger cooler if you have like a 3600 or something like that. But the 7700 X3D, which we just got, kind of didn't fare quite as well as the 5800 X3D in terms of enthusiasm, obviously. so many people on AM4 want to upgrade, but the 7700 X3D did come in. It's a slightly better value than the 7800 X3D, although the 7800 X3D is on sale at the time of filming this. We'll talk about CPU price in just a moment, but really doesn't touch the value of the 7600 X3D, which if you can get it, or the 7500 X3D if you're in a different market. Those are just insane values. Look at the price to performance for a $230 CPU. That being said, the 7800 X3D, not that much more performance for, 30 or 40 bucks. You can spend that on something else. Oh, look at that. I'm literally in the middle of recording this video. It's 5 o'clock Central Time on the day the 7700 X3D went live, and they literally just slapped a $50 off promo code on it out on Newegg. By the way, we found out this morning that this CPU in North America is a Newegg exclusive. I'm not a big fan of exclusive CPUs like this. I didn't like it when they did it at Micro Center with the 7600 X3D, 5600 X3D. I'm glad you can now buy that CPU through Amazon via Micro Center, obviously, but $50 off right now. Now, AMD reached out to content creators who had a sample of this, and they asked us, what do we think about the price in the market? I basically told them, look, $329, technically better value than the 7800 X3D. If that price is going to be like $360, $380, but it's like not very exciting. It's like, oh, it's better than 9700X, but like that's not great. I said, if you want an exciting CPU, it had to be under $300. I think I said $299. Now, I really believe it should be like $279, which is what we're seeing right here. It's hard to say whether or not this is just kind of to get things going for them and maybe generate a little bit of excitement, or if this is going to essentially be a permanent price cut where they don't really adjust the MSRP. They just sell it forever at like $279 instead. Now, I got to say, AMD is so good at completely misreading the room when it comes to pricing of products. Then all the reviews come out, and the reviews today were like, yeah, it's great, but the price, nah. They do this every single time, and they fall on their face, and then they cut the price afterwards. Why not just cut the price ahead of time, have everybody come out for $280? I would say, this is the best CPU on the planet, because it would be for $280. Give me a break. It would be insane. I just don't understand why they have to always do it the hard way and just kind of like basically like foot and mouth all the time. Speaking of those RAM prices, let's check in on the cost of a 16 and 32 gigabyte kit for both DDR4 and DDR5. It's kind of like a tale of two cities here, basically. DDR4 prices continue to come down. We also got some good news we'll talk about in just a moment. Looks like DDR4 is about to hit the market even in more quantity than we already have. $125 in May, $115 right now. If I look at, you can see several different kits here, between $110 and about $120, including if you go to Newegg, remember to look for these kind of promo code kits here where you can basically take this off the top. This basically makes it a $115 kit or $114. Same with this, is basically makes it $109 for a DDR4 3600 CL18 kit. Meanwhile, 32 gigabyte kits kind of unchanged. Basically, there's a number of kits right around $200, including not just kind of no-name Silicon Power, Corsair Vengeance kits now for about $200 as well. On the DDR5 side, the good news is that 16 gigabyte kits continue to either come down or at least stay neutral in price. In fact, during Amazon Prime Day, we saw a lot of kits hit around or just under $200 US. Pretty good speeds for, again, 16 gigabyte kits. A lot of those RGB ones right now for about $210, you can pick up like a couple of different team group kits. You kind of got to hunt and peck here at Newegg because you got to do a little bit of math as soon as you find a promo code. So you'll be going through, oh, here we go, $40 off $259. So that's $220 for that kit. $52 off this kit is $207 basically, and that's DDR5 6000 CL30 stuff. Of course, DDR5 32 gigabyte kits is kind of where the wheels fall off the bus entirely, because unfortunately the pricing has not just stayed the same, it has not gone down, it's actually gone up by 10% from May, from $365 for a 32 gigabyte kit to $390 for some of the cheapest 32 gigabyte kits. Now, I do want to say, it is possible to find something like this. You're like, Jason, that's $439, but the promo code is actually $70 off. So this one's like $369 basically. It's still possible to find these kinds of a la carte deals. Obviously, RAM combo deals still remain your best option, especially for 32 gigabyte. Yes, that limits your choice of motherboard, CPU, maybe cooler, something else like that, but you do get a bigger discount on the RAM. It typically takes down to $300-ish or below, somewhere around there. But unfortunately, otherwise, if you're going a la carte, these are the kind of deals you're going to have to kind of hunt and peck for. $420 with a $30 promo code, $390. That's about the going rate. Let's take a quick look at CPU prices for July 2026, and kind of with an eye towards Black Friday, Amazon Prime Day in October coming up. Right now, the Ryzen 5500, $82. Again, just kind of an insane value in terms of a cheap budget gaming CPU to put together kind of a Steam machine alternative out there. 5600X, 5600T, 5600XT, all those CPUs essentially remain the same in terms of the price. Then looking at AM5 CPUs, I've got Ryzen 5 and Ryzen 7. Too many CPUs, so I put the Ryzen 9. We'll talk about those in just a moment. Look how many X3D CPUs, by the way. So many X3D CPUs at this point, it's hard to keep track. And again, there's Ryzen 9 X3D CPUs too, and there's 5000 series. But look at that 7700 X3D price, $280. Look how much better it looks than what would have been $329 right now, because the 7800 X3D can be had for $348 over at Amazon. The 7600 X3D is $239 right now over at Amazon via Micro Center. Just like that is kind of the sweet spot. And I do think that 7700 X3D is going to look so much better in terms of price to performance in just a moment. Meanwhile, the higher end X3D CPUs, I don't know what's going on with those prices, but $484 for the 9850 X3D, I guess technically it's under MSRP. And then $445 for the 9800 X3. It just, that's a little bit rough on the pricing. And a quick look at AMD's more production-oriented CPUs, the Ryzen 9 CPUs. Not a huge change here, except for the 9900X, which came down a whopping 11% to $328. It does seem like AMD may be feeling a little bit of heat from like the Core Ultra 5 250K Plus, thanks Intel for these crazy naming schemes, and the 270K Plus out there. All right, moving over to Intel CPU pricing really quickly for July 2026. Now note, I've removed a bunch of CPUs from this chart that I felt like were just cluttering it up, kind of duplicative at this point, especially with the 250K Plus and 270K Plus. I've gotten rid of the other Core Ultra CPUs that just were not good performers and kind of silly overpriced, and things like the 14900K, 14700K, kind of similar reasoning there. If you look at the budget end, I really was hoping that we'd see like the 12400, 12600K, the i3 CPUs, much lower prices than they are right now. Unfortunately, I think pre-built buyers are buying those up in mass for pre-built PCs, especially with like an RTX 5060 or 5060 Ti that needs PCIe Gen 4 to get more bandwidth out of it, basically. And then, of course, we've got the 250K plus, 270K plus, no real price changes there. Let's jump in the best CPU for gaming in 2026 in July, and production as well. Now, if you're not familiar with how we do this, we basically take all the CPUs, put them in this big spreadsheet, and then we take the cost of the CPU, the cost of the RAM, the motherboard, the cooler, and we come up with a total platform price, and then we divide that by the gaming score or production score, and we get a price to performance. Then we divide them out into their various categories. If you want to jump into the spreadsheet, put in your own pricing, change the configurations I've got here, check it out, link down in the video description. Let's start with the best budget gaming CPU in July 2026. So this is where the total platform price is less than $500, obviously dominated largely by DDR4 CPUs, except look at that Ryzen 7500F there. But obviously the number one best budget CPU right now, it's the Ryzen 5500. $82 right now. It was as little as $65 during Amazon Prime Day. You can get tons of Newegg combo deals with it, and it uses cheap DDR4 RAM. You can get away with 16 gigs, obviously, with a relatively cheap B550 motherboard and the stock cooler that it comes with. $287 for the entire platform is crazy to think about in 2026 when so much else seems so expensive. $2.93 in terms of its price to performance, kind of just demolishes everything else. If you want to come up in terms of performance a little bit, yes, you can spend another $60 on a 5600 or 5600X. That'll basically get you a little bit more performance, or consider just jumping up to AM5 with a Ryzen 7500F. It does cost another $200-ish. However, you're on AM5 with a useful lifespan in front of you. You got 16 gigs of DDR5 RAM, and you're good to go. A lot of these other platforms are really hard to justify. Unfortunately, I think Intel could do a lot better in terms of its overall pricing. In terms of Newegg combos right now, really the only combos they've got going are things like this with the B550 motherboard, 16 gigs of DDR4 RGB RAM, and the Ryzen 5500, along with a pretty nice mid-range Asus gaming mouse here. $280. It basically makes the RAM about $100. It's a small discount. All right, jumping over to mid-range production CPUs. This is where the multi-core score is 170 or greater, and the price is $1,000 or less. Honestly, Intel's making a really strong value argument here. It's $2.53 price to performance for the 270K plus, $300 for that CPU, and you get, a big air cooler or a 400 millimeter all-in-one liquid cooler. And then you've got a Z890 quality motherboard with that and 32 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM. For less than $1,000, you got a system that can pretty much just crush any performance task and is the equivalent of like a 9950X, which you don't even see on here because it's too expensive. AMD really does need to cut some prices in terms of the multi-core CPUs. Otherwise, it is Intel, except for the fact, of course, no future upgrade path. All right, moving on with the best mid-range gaming CPU. So this is where the gaming score is 135 or greater, and the total price of the platform is $700 or less. Now, surprisingly, the 7700 X3D, now remember, typically these are like the non-X3D CPUs rise to the top, except the 7600 X3D is just totally insane value. It kind of throws the entire market off, and that's why, again, we have a whole 7600 X3D build guide video. I'll leave it linked down in the video description. If you just decide, Jason, that thing is just crazy, crazy good value. It's better than 9600X or 7600X, even though the CPUs sell for quite a bit less because it's that much more performative. But the 7700 X3D looks pretty good right now. I have to say they're kind of all bunched up. I know they're all, when we got a stack rank, it's like, oh, it's number 6, but it's not that far behind the 7600 X3D. You do get 2 additional CPU cores. I know some of you want that out there, by the way. Do things other than gaming, just kind of feel a little bit better about it. And this is using a mid-tower air cooler, so it is pretty quiet. An R7700 X3D gaming PC build, even on a Cinebench stress test, that thing was so quiet. I have to say, the Peerless Assassin, really, really great cooler, dual tower cooler for that. The rest of the field here is kind of mixed. If I was building super cheap, I'd probably look for a Ryzen 7500F. Although again, it's not that much more to move up to the 7600 X3D, so if it didn't hurt my GPU, I'd do that. Otherwise, I think if you want to approach higher levels of performance, the 7700 X3D does look pretty good. Now, I do want to add some Newegg combo deals because they do have some interesting ones here. The 5800 X3D, not as interesting at $524, obviously, but the 9600X and the 7700 X3D, and in fact, I just remembered to adjust the price by $49, the discount code. You can see right here, $459. It gets you a pretty good combo deal, by the way, because right now they're also throwing in a 240 millimeter all-in-one liquid cooler. That's the Cooler Master Elite ARGB version. The motherboard's a pretty good one. It's the MSI B850 Gaming Plus Wi-Fi. I do like that board quite a bit. And it's a pretty good 16 gigabyte DDR5 6000 CL38 RGB kit by Team Group on it. $459 is tough to beat. However, right now, probably the value champ is going to be this one. The only thing I don't like about this combo kit and the ones they're offering right now with the 7700 X3D, they're using single 16 gigabyte sticks. Now, some people say, hey, Jason, AMD said it doesn't hurt the gaming performance that much on these X3D CPUs. That's probably true. They did include some slides in there. I haven't personally tested it. I haven't seen anybody else test it that much. I do know the 1% lows can suffer more than the average frame rate on it, so I'm a little reticent to do that, but you can in the future drop in an identical 16 gigabyte stick and you would have 32 gigabytes of RAM. That's the advantage of it. And right now you get this for basically $450, although I will say it doesn't come with the cooler. But once you add all that up, the cost of price to performance is $2.85 for the 7700 X3D. I mean, that just blows everything else. That's like Ryzen 5500 territories of value. Moving over to high performance production, before we get to high performance gaming, which we are getting to, multi-core score 300 or greater on this one, no price cap. Obviously, Intel dominates with their Core Harvey architecture on the 270K plus, and right now that thing is basically same performance as the 9950X in terms of its multi-core score, that's Cinebench, but considerably cheaper, about $150 cheaper. That's quite a bit of money. That's almost your 32 gigabyte RAM kit there. So it is kind of hard to justify going Ryzen here on the bigger ones, except obviously you do have that future upgrade path. And if you factor that in, maybe the 9950X makes some sense. Jumping into the best high performance gaming CPU in July 2026. So this is where the gaming score is 160 or greater and there's no price cap basically. And as you can see, this has just been dominated by Ryzen X3D CPUs. In fact, everything on here except one Intel CPU is an X3D CPU of some form, basically. You just kind of got to pick where you want to be. We already talked about the 7600 X3D. It's insane price to performance. However, look at the 7700 X3D with that $50 price cut that literally just came through on launch day. AMD, why didn't you do this before launch day? Just gonna pull my hair out here. look at the price of performance of that thing. It slots in very nicely between the 7600 X3D and the higher end X3D CPUs like the 9800 X3D, 9850 X3D, let alone the 7800 X3D, because the performance is near identical, especially if you're going to use a GPU like a 9070 XT, 5070 Ti, unless you're going to go 5090. If you're going to go 5090, you're going to get a 9850 X3D anyway. So really, if you're talking about the performance of these GPUs at 1440p, 4K, even high performance kind of esports games, they're going to be virtually identical. You're obviously, I would recommend going $280 for the 7700 X3D, investing that extra money, almost $100 at times, depending on where the price of 7800 X3D goes in the next week or two, and investing that in getting maybe 32 gigs of RAM instead of 16 gigs of RAM. Like, you have a lot more possibilities out there. And to me, it just makes so much sense. Again, if you're not going to go with the 7600 X3D, which I think is the absolute budget champion here on the higher performance, if you want highest performance, the 9850 X3D, I think, is probably where you're going to go. There's a $39 difference basically in terms of the total platform price between the 9800 X3D and 9850 X3D. I would just recommend getting the big one, unless they're going to cut the price of 9800 X3D. I really do think it needs something of a price cut to make it make a little bit more sense. On the other side, remember, even if you get the 9950 X3D 2, the performance is roughly identical with the 9800 X3D. The 9850 X3D is slightly faster than the 9950 X3D 2, even though it's got dual Vcache, because a lot of games don't want to use both CCDs on that. So just keep that in mind. That's really a hybrid production and high-end gaming CPU. All right, let's play everyone's favorite game. Should you buy now or should you wait? Well, what is going on? What is going on, AMD? You just got to get your stuff together. You are a meme at this point, an absolute meme. You literally just did this with your last 2 out of 3 product launches. The 9070 GRE you can pick up right now at Newegg for $499, which should have been the price all along. Now it looks like you're doing the same thing with the promo code basically on the 7700 X3D. I mean, the only one you got right was the 5800 X3D, and that's because those people are so desperate that they're going to buy it because they don't have to buy RAM and a motherboard. So it just boggles my mind why you have to do this every time. You get terrible publicity and then you acquiesce anyway. Why not just do that up front? Then you get good press and we'd all say, wow, what a great CPU, and it would drive enthusiasm. But I think you guys just decide you always want to do it the hard way. So, okay, with that out of the way, I like the 7700 X3D. In fact, I like it a lot at its current price, which is $279-ish, $280 over at Newegg right now. And again, I don't know how long that price is going to last. It might be just like a 1 or 2 week thing that AMD is throwing on there because nobody was buying the CPU this morning, and they're just going to let it ride at some point. So if you want this thing, I think I'd take the extra $50 discount. It makes it easier to buy all the other components, which, by the way, all the other components are still sitting at or near their Prime Day low prices. And those Prime Day low prices were cheaper than Prime Day last year. In fact, if you put together a build list of a system from last year and a system from this year, other than the 32 to 16 gigabyte kind of RAM switch, you can actually build a system cheaper this year, which kind of blows my mind. You're just getting way more value because PSUs, motherboards, coolers, like cases, everything else has been hammered down in terms of its pricing. So will things get cheaper? Will things get more expensive? Well, unfortunately, we've got a little situation going again in the Middle East. I don't want to get into politics on this channel, but I guarantee you that is going to drive prices up because the things that are manufactured overseas get shipped across an ocean. That costs money to transport at places, and that all comes, unfortunately, from fossil fuels, which is what's at stake right now. So if you want to buy something, I would not expect prices necessarily to be cheaper in Prime Day for October or for Black Friday. I would not expect prices to possibly even be cheaper until the middle of 2027. And I just think that that is too far to wait. And the value, like I said, is really there. And I don't mean to overemphasize this point. It's your money. If you feel like you want to wait, you certainly can. I just think life is short. What are you really going to save here? To me, I would build now. Everything is linked down in the video description, including all the Newegg combo deals that we looked at and the $50 off or $49 off 7700 X3D, at least right now. So check that out for current pricing and availability in your region. If you got value out of this video, by the way, please do give it a like. It makes a huge difference to the channel. And of course, subscribe for more cool PC content. Like, speaking of the 7700 X3D and its amazing value, did you see our 7700 X3D gaming PC build guide? We went through all the parts you need to do the best 7700 X3D gaming PC build in 2026, from the GPU to the CPU to the RAM and more. Check it out, and we'll catch you on the next one.